Hello, everyone, and welcome to the condensed version of this creative live stream. The image you're looking at right now is the one that I'll be painting during this session, and I'm calling it the Queen's Tree. It's the point in the book where Aloura, the main character, the little girl, and her panther named Maybelle, they come upon what's rumored to be the queen, the tree where the queen of the forest lives. And it's a majestic sight. Um, she has these magic lanterns that hang from the tree, and everyone in the forest speaks of her, but no one's really ever seen her. For those of you that don't know me yet, my name is Peter Bragino. I'm a full-time fine artist, musician, and entrepreneur. I make my living selling prints of my work through my online store, which is located at www.bragino.com. I'm currently creating art out of my studio in Amityville, New York. I'm the creator of the Guardians Bird series. This collection of 18 different bird images was created to honor the beauty of our feathered friends and to act as protection to the dreams you hold for yourself and your family. You can meet your guardian and take one home today by visiting my website. Now, without further ado, let's get to this live painting. So onto this painting, I'm going to talk you through this process and try to let you know on this condensed version what was happening and what my thought process was at the time. I know it's going by pretty quickly, but I've sped it up 5 times faster than the normal version. What would have taken like 2 hours is like now almost down to less than a half an hour. Um, at this point, I'm just setting up the tonality of the canvas, and I'm using a reference image of a scene that someone else had painted, and I just like the mood in the painting. So I've adopted the idea of what that color palette was and the mood that it's giving. Um, you can see I do a lot of scribbling when I draw. This line work winds up being informed design decisions and things that I can go back in and paint into. But for right now, I'm not too concerned about the. I mean, the clouds are just basically like an abstraction in the background, and they're gonna play a very supporting role in the scene. They won't be the main focus, so I don't really necessarily need to put too much detail into the clouds. But I definitely do want it to be interesting enough looking so that if you do, look at this say in a print later on, and you look up pretty, closely to it, that you'll find that some attention was definitely paid to that area, and it would be very interesting to look at. So I'm all about things being interesting to look at, especially if they're not going to be the main character of the image or the main subject matter. You still want to, look. You still want to have some kind of design work. For me personally, I like to have design work peppered into just about everything that I do on a page, even if the design work is very simple. Right there, I was just showing a reference picture that I took of a tree in a concept park. It's actually not a tree, it's just a fallen piece of a tree. But I shot it from a really low angle, almost like a bug's eye view. And because I did that, it gave that small little, maybe like 3 foot by, not even, maybe might have been just like 24 inches wide by, basically like a 24-inch diameter piece of a tree, but it made it look really huge. So what I've done is I've imagined that tree is the base of the queen of the forests habitat, or the rumored home of the queen of the forest, and building a tree on top of that to create even more epic scale. I want this tree to feel grand in nature, and that's basically what I'm going for. Um, right now I'm just trying to figure out the point of view, and well, I mean, I pretty much kind of know the point of view, but the point of view that I had in my head initially, I I'm not really getting it here. you'll see before too long, I'm going to scrap this entire initial beginning portion and then draw out a thumbnail to be able to figure out what it is I'm trying to show. Um, I I tell this to everybody else. I'm pretty consistent with it. Anytime everyone has an issue or a problem with something that they're drawing, I always tell them to thumbnail it out. You know, make a thumbnail, make it work in a thumbnail size, and figure it out really small before you start painting anything big. Well, I am going against my own personal advice right now, thinking that I can just draw it straight and everything will work out. But what's happening is that my camera angle is way too high. I'm supposed to be looking up underneath the base of the tree, but the camera angle is so high and the horizon line is so high. The horizon line's up at like almost like the base of where the leaves start on the tree. So technically we're looking down, but I'm painting the bottom of the tree as if we're looking up at it, and that doesn't work because it's impossible. So eventually I get cued into the fact that, you know what, this is not working, and I'm gonna work it out in a thumbnail before I go back in and start the painting again. So I'm basically doing what I tell most people not to do, and that is start painting and making details on something before you even work out what the composition is, and you're settled with feeling that the composition is correct. So here I am now drawing the comp that I should have drawn in the beginning with the horizon line. I made sure I put the horizon line down there because it's extremely important to know where eye level is so that you can make all your decisions based on that. And you can see now that the tree looks like we're looking up from underneath the base of the tree, and the scale is looking much, much bigger at this point, even in just a very quick thumbnail. So that was pretty much it. I mean, that's all I really needed to do to give myself the best start possible. And as I tell everybody else, and I'm on that train now myself, especially since I'm doing this stuff more often, that it has to start with a thumbnail, and it has to get worked out, perspective wise, compositionally, all that stuff needs to really really work well. Otherwise, the image just won't look right. So right now everything feels like it's in excuse me. Everything feels like it's in three-dimensional space the way it should be. I was contemplating on trying to utilize the colors that I had in the initial tree to save myself some time, but it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. It was confusing the image, so I decided that if I wanted any colors from the actual image, I would just color pick them off what I painted already. So that's basically what I'm doing. You'll see me on numerous occasions just go over to that tree and pick a color off of it. Color wise, I didn't mind what I was doing. It was just compositionally, it was not what I intended, and it technically was, the fundamentals of it were not correct. It was out of perspective. The horizon line had not been established properly. The one thing that I can note to you right now, knowing what I did eventually on this image, is you actually see me starting to paint out the lanterns that are on the tree. But those lanterns are too big for the scale that I was going for. You know, if that was an actual lantern and it was in that tree, and that tree was as big as I'm making it look right now, those lanterns would be fairly huge. They might be a good 10 foot or more in diameter, and the lanterns that are in her tree are not that big. They're, I don't know the exact story behind the lanterns, but I'm pretty sure that they're filled with fireflies, and that's why they glow. And so they're going to be basically much smaller than that, probably a minimum of half the size that I stated before, or less. So so eventually I'll put the lanterns back in, but they're going to be much, much smaller at that point in time. So what I'm doing right now in painting the roots is I'm trying to establish the local color of the tree, some of the light from the sky hitting down into these shadowed areas on top to illuminate them. And you'll also see a an orange color up underneath the tree, and that orange color is a depiction of the light that's being cast to the bottom side of the tree from a lantern that Aloura is holding, a very bright lantern, and that bounce light, or it's actually a direct light from underneath, but that light is giving that kind of like the tree a bit of an underglow. The sometimes these story elements kind of create themselves. I I wanted a way to show the form on the bottom of the tree and to just kind of light it up like you were inside a cavern, and you were shining a light up on the walls of the cavern, just to give it that like more of an epic feeling. And for this comp, the solution I decided upon, and I'm not sure whether or not that'll stay, is that the main character, Laura, while she walks up to the tree, she's holding like a very, you know, big lantern, basically. So you could say I put some of the uh, shapes, big shapes in the background to depict what would be the forest in the background, in the distance. And I really like the simplicity of those shapes. It makes sense because my point of focus and the subject matter of this image is the tree. That main big tree is the subject matter, or the point of focus. At this point, I'm trying to establish what the topographical, you know, aerial, the basically the lay of the land. I'm trying to establish the lay of the land and figure out where this tree is sitting right now. I kind of like the idea of it being anchored into a wall like that. I've always seen architecture and houses that were anchored into a wall, like even like Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. That house is anchored into a cliffside, and it has, I believe, it has a garage that you can drive in underneath through the back of the house, and it's things like that that kind of influence design decisions, and definitely was an influence on what I did here. I like the idea of organic design and even dwellings like hobbit houses and sustainable living. I mean, if this was your house, it would be pretty cool. I'm not sure. Maybe you've had some way to climb to the top of the tree and you can hang out up in there, and it was like a tree house up in the top, like almost like a village, treehouse village. But right now it's hard to tell scale until I put the little characters into the scene. I mean, this it could be a piece of broccoli just standing up on the ground, and this could be, the view of an ant. If I put an ant inside there that was kind of really big, it would look like this is a really small scene. But when I eventually put the two main characters in there, the scale then shows itself. This middle ground area that I put in, the dark pieces, I did not like. It was too confusing. I'm going to eventually fix that. I think looking back on it now, there was just too much detail. So I think at one point in time, oh, there you go. Yeah, see, I just simplified it and made it just like an abstract shapes. I think I'll even refine that. I'll refine that even more. I'm a true believer in the idea of making sure you understand what your main point of interest is in an image that you're creating, no matter what it is, or a song. It could be anything. It could be any piece of art. And then allowing everything else within that scene to be a supporting element. And if anything in the scene becomes too distracting or it starts calling out for too much attention, then what you have on your hands is a what I would call like a rogue actor. Is someone who's not the main character but really wishes they were, and maybe they're causing a disruption at in the play because they want more attention than the character that they're playing is going to get within that play. So I look for I look for like rogue actors, or I think that's a kind of a funny way to do it, to say it. I look for rogue actors and just adjust them if I need to in order to tone them down. That's a good word to use, tone them down. So yeah, they get either toned down or eliminated so that they don't compete with the star, the main point of interest, the tree, the queen's tree. And then we create harmony and balance once again for the story that we're trying to tell. I'm feeling like I take these out as well. This extra foreground element. I think I cut it down. Yeah, that wasn't working. I cut them down more to like bushes, something that's just not so in your face. Again, it was like one of those rogue actors vying for attention, and it just wasn't necessary to tell the story or to direct focus in the image, which is basically the only job that I feel that I have. My main job as a designer or content creator, storyteller, is to direct the attention. You're basically a director when you're making a painting, and you have to make sure all the parts work with one another, that nothing that's not no part that isn't supposed to be highlighted is taking up too much attention. Here's where the scale starts coming in. I've got the character size. I think I'm actually going to make the character smaller. Oh, maybe not. There's the little panther standing next to her. This is just rough. I just wanted to put some indication of the two characters, just to show the scale and to give myself a good solid compositional sketch that I could then later go back in and refine. So that was the little lantern I just painted in her hand, and there you can see I'm kind of just lighting up the the underneath or the front end portion of the cave, as if that light is affecting it. You can see me painting in some foreground elements there, like some rocks in the foreground. And I can tell you from my experience so far that putting things in the foreground for me has had up to this point, been a little bit of a struggle, because for some reason I felt like I always wanted to put the things like right in the foreground. I always wanted to make them really big and almost like a frame, like the idea of making like an organic frame in the front, and it never really worked. And then the more I looked at other artists and what they were doing and how they would frame out or put foreground, extreme close-up foreground elements to show the idea of scale and distance, I noticed that they were being really subtle about it. It's like you don't need much there. And if you were taking a picture, if this was a real scene and you were actually standing there with a camera, and this is the way I try to think about it now, how would you frame the shot? Obviously you wouldn't want to block most of the scene with a foreground element, but it would be nice to get a foreground element in there just to show that the idea of distance. So here we go, we're putting in the lanterns again. You can see I made them much, much smaller, and I made a lot more of them. I'm intrigued by the idea of magic, particles, light, the things that you can't really explain that add that mystery to life. So anything that falls within that realm is, to me, is fair game for something that I'm going to be putting into an image. I think that it's like the wonder that you had when you were a child, when we used to chase lightning bugs or fireflies around in the summertime on a warm summer night here in New York, or fireworks, or dust particles in the light when it streams through the window. Like all these little things, these beautiful visual moments. I've always thought to myself, wow, I wish I had a video camera with me at all times, because I wouldn't want to miss any of this stuff. And then when the iPhone came out, I did have a video camera with me, and I used to take videos of things like that. My brother does video editing, and what you would call that now would be like B-roll type stuff, just like beautiful moments, like in the movie American Beauty, when the plastic bag just is floating around and around and around, just getting taken by the winds and the currents. That one portion of that movie is so beautiful. It's actually probably my favorite part of the movie. But what I realize now is that I don't necessarily need a camera to capture all those moments. I was capturing all those moments in my memory. So I did have a camera with me. And now that I'm at the point where I'm able to start making images like this, I'm playing those reels back, and I'm putting them into the things that I'm making now, which is really beautiful. So at this juncture of the drawing, I'm pretty much done with the main Queen's tree, and I've moved over to drawing an image of a panther. I had a panther. I think I'll show the reference here in a minute, but since there's a panther in the graphic novel, well, one of the main characters, Maybelle the Panther, I know that I need to start drawing panthers. I need to start drawing them a lot. So any chance I get, any opportunity I get, I'm going to be drawing panthers and doing little reference sketches or anatomical studies, movement studies, trying to understand how to accurately depict the panther in a scene so that it looks natural and alive. You know, I don't want it to feel stiff and um, unanimated. Even though this is not, this is just a graphic novel. It's not an animated piece, but I want it to still feel as if it could be animated. Because one day, this might be turned into an animation or a film or something like that. I'd be more than open to that. So this study obviously took a lot longer, but I'm just blazing through it right now because I'm going 5 times faster. Maybelle has glowing green eyes, so I'm always going to put the glow in there. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm working on glowing up the eyes. And I was explaining in the live stream when I was live that in my observations of things that glow and lights, there's always very saturated colors in it. Like if you have a yellow, it's like the most saturated yellow you can have. If there's an orange, it's the most saturated orange. Um, I'm not sure physically why that is. I'm sure there's an explanation for it, but observationally, that's something that I know that I have to do in order to make something look like it's actually glowing or it has a light in it. I was also explaining that the another way to make things look like they're glowing more is to surround them with dark tones. So these dark areas that I'm drawing in it right now are being placed strategically so that the eyes of the panther, which would be the focus of the main character of the actual image, that the eyes would glow. So, and then here I was informed that I need to put whiskers on the panther by somebody on the live stream, and that's why that's happening. So I'm pretty sure that this is coming to a close. I'll put a final image of the Queen's tree here at the end, just for you to check out for a minute. But I think that's it. I want to thank you for sticking with me and listening to my playback on this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the painting of this Queen's tree image, and I hope to see you on a future live stream. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for notifications of when I go live or post new videos. You can connect with me on Twitter and Instagram by searching @Bragino. My website is www.bragino.com. Visit me there for more of my art and to purchase prints of my work. Thank you so much.